Hey guys, welcome back to Pop Culture Down Under, and I've got another Omnibus overview for you, another Marvel Omnibus that we're going to have a quick look at, and today's is the Heroes Reborn Omnibus. So, on the front cover here we can see some fantastic Brett Booth artwork. Looking at the Fantastic Four, we can see Iron Man in the back left, we've got the Heroes Reborn title at the top. If I turn the book on its side and we have a look at the spine, we can see that that cover wraps around onto the spine as well, with the title and the Marvel Omnibus ribbon at the top of the spine. And then on the back, we get the continuation of that wraparound cover with a description, a very brief description at the bottom, as well as a number of the different creators that were working on this series throughout the late 90s. And we can see that we've got $125 US cover price. This is one of the thickest Marvel Omnibus I've got in my collection. It took me quite a while to read, and considering it is often considered quite an infamous series, I found it really enjoyable to read through. You get a little bit of artwork from some creators in particular that is very of its time. But overall, I thought the artwork was really good, and the reimagining of the old school Marvel stories to fit the more 90s aesthetic of that time, I really enjoyed it. So let's have a look inside. Before I open the book, we'll quickly remove the dust jacket and have a look at the actual cover, which we can see is really just the same wraparound cover that we have on the dust jacket, and it continues right the way around the back, but this time you get the full image rather than having any descriptions or anything like that in the bottom portion there. So let's take a look and let's have a look inside. So let's open it up. We've got purple cover pages. We've got fantastic cover art there. I believe that's Jim Lee with doing some Thor, Captain America and Iron Man. And then once we get inside here, we can see there was a really big list of creators involved in this. So when we think back to the 90s, we all know that, or maybe we all know that Heroes Reborn was sort of a relaunch of the Marvel characters that weren't the X-Men or Spider-Man, the ones that were less popular during 1996, and this happened after Onslaught occurred in the X-Men and Avengers books. So all of the characters that were not selling very well were taken and given to the old image creators like Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, and some of the others who had had great success launching Image and their own titles in the earlier 90s. So Marvel thought that by giving these guys the rights to work on the Marvel characters, they could increase their sales. And I believe that it really did help in the beginning, as people did buy into the event. But by the end, I don't think it quite had the impact that Marvel had hoped it would have. And eventually, of course, the characters found their way back in the Heroes Return comics. And some of those are really good. Though I enjoyed the story overall. So we can see we've got a lot of the writers up here are actually artists. So people like Rob Liefeld and Jim Lee, and I was quite surprised to see them writing. In most issues, they were supported by people like Jeff Loeb and Peter David and other writers like that, who I think helped them turn in good scripts. But yeah, overall, good stories. Now, the start of the Omnibus gives us some of the roughest art, in my opinion. So the Rob Liefeld artwork in some of the earlier Captain America issues, we've all seen that cover where his chest's the size of his head. And while it's nothing that bad in here, Rob Liefeld is someone that I appreciate what he's done for comics, but his style's just never quite been for me. So we can see a bit more of his work here. Now, this is such a big omnibus, I can't flip through page to page. So let's keep going through, and we're still seeing some more of this Liefeld Captain America stuff, which overall were enjoyable, action-packed issues. And yeah, they did some interesting things with Cap's character. So a lot of the Liefeld stuff is got out of the way really early, and the art does improve. So by this point, I find the art a little better than at the beginning of the book. And we get to see other characters like Nick Fury, the Helicarrier. Unlike in Ultimates, these sort of things are pretty much left the way that they were. Falcon and Cap have a sort of a different relationship. I'll give Liefeld some credit. There are some pretty awesome splash pages in here. I really like the way he does Red Skull. And we get Red Skull, we get Crossbones, we get Captain America taking down Nazis, which we all like to see. We get Thor. So we get a number of these big double-page spreads like this where you have to actually turn the book around. While the images are always amazing, I was never a fan of having to turn a book, especially one this big, around to have a look at the pages. Let's flip through until we find some different artwork. Okay, so straight away, we can see here that we've got some Jim Lee work here on Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Four issues were definitely my favourites in the Omnibus. Jim Lee's artwork in the earlier issues is exactly what you would expect from Jim Lee. It's fantastic to see him working on the Fantastic Four, to see his renderings of classic characters like The Thing, the Richards family, Doctor Doom, and Namor. And I think I find it a pretty marked improvement in the artwork to jump from Liefeld to Jim Lee. I really like that his and Brandon Choi's redo of the traditional Fantastic Four story. I actually think that this story might have played a little bit of a role in what they used to make the later Fantastic Four movie a couple of years ago. Though that movie was pretty universally hated, I did enjoy the origin story that they used in that movie. And so the Fantastic Four issues continue. If we go back a little bit, we can see some really good artwork here of the Mole Man. Looks pretty different to how he looked in the old Stan Lee, Jack Kirby comics. So let's keep going through. We get Namor, we get Captain America. So cool to see Jim Lee draw some of these characters that he didn't really do during his X-Men run. Keep going through. All right, and we get some Avengers issues where we have Rob Liefeld on plot and edits, but we have Chap Yap, I'm not sure how that's pronounced, sorry, on pencils. And I think that this is much improved over Rob Liefeld's own art. And the story's quite good. He does a good job of scripting it. It's an enjoyable story. I think here we've got some Whilce Portacio art on Iron Man. And we get some pretty amazing Hulk images as well. Hulk is massive in this series. And we get some more of those vertical double page spreads. I'm not going to go into the plot line in detail, but if you've read older Marvel comics, the original stuff that was made by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, a lot of those stories are sort of reimagined and retold in this book in such a way that they do kind of fit together so that there's a cohesive story over the course of the book. So we get 12 issues of Fantastic Four, Captain America, Avengers, and Iron Man that all do link together to give us a story. So Rob Liefeld comes back for this fight between Hulk and Thor, and I think he did a good job here. It was a blockbuster style fight, and he did a good job of this. Mostly there's not really many feet to be seen here. And we get a little bit more Fantastic Four. Jim Lee's still doing pencils, but later on Jim Lee will just take on writing duties and he'll leave the penciling to some various other artists. So here we can see Super Skrull and Doctor Doom in a double page spread drawn by Jim Lee. Stuff like that is the reason you buy this omnibus. Not only does it have an okay story, but it has stunning artwork. For me personally, I'm such a fan of Jim Lee's artwork that I actually really only bought this just so I could see more Jim Lee artwork that I didn't have before, but I was pleasantly surprised as well by how good the story was, considering how often I hear that it's criticized. I really don't think that without this move from Marvel, we would have got something that's as well lovable as the Ultimates. This is, for me, it's really like the prototype for the Ultimates. It differs in a lot of its story beats, but it's similar in some ways, and it's sort of like the prototype for relaunching the Marvel Universe, basically. So again, awesome artwork. Look at Galactus and Silver Surfer there. All right, as we keep flipping through, we get close to the back. We've got some more Whilce Portacio there on Iron Man. And as we get towards the back, we've got the Fantastic Four issues. We have Brett Booth taking over for Jim Lee. They have a very similar style, so you don't even really notice in some ways, and he does a great job at rendering these characters as well. All right, flipping towards the back of the book, this is one of the Marvel Omnibus that's got some of the least back matter in it of any Marvel Omni I've ever seen. So we really only get a few pages. We get an old introduction from the Fantastic Four Heroes Reborn trade paperback that was written by Jim Lee. Gives us a little bit of an insight into what they were trying to achieve with that series. We get an unused page from Avengers number 10 and a little bit of a breakdown of some artwork from Iron Man. And that's it. 3 pages of back matter, which is not a problem for me. I rather read the stories and get the maximum amount of stories and artwork for my money in an omnibus. But for some people who really like that creative insight, they might be disappointed that there's not too much back matter here. But with the size of this book, I really think that that's the reason that they've kept the back matter to a minimum. It was already so big, they really just couldn't fit that much more in here. It really is the size of a larger DC omnibus, which is very unusual for Marvel. Okay. Just before I wrap this up, something else that we could talk about is the binding of the book. We get a really big, nice open eye hole here, okay? Definitely no gutter loss, okay? It lays pretty much flat in the middle, and so you can enjoy all of the amazing double page spreads in here. So just to sum it up and give it a number rating, if you like 90s comics and you like 90s art style and you like your Marvel characters, this is a no-brainer, okay? You should be able to, in Australia, pick this up for around $150 to $170. I wouldn't be paying $200 for it, or some of these prices that Omnis can be going for nowadays. It's got a $125 USD cover price, so in Australia I wouldn't be paying any more than $170, $175 for it. But really, you do get a lot of bang for your buck. Took me about 2 weeks to get through it, and you get some amazing art from creators like Jim Lee, Whilce Portacio, Brett Booth, Ian Churchill, a lot of those 90s art guys. So if you like 90s comics, Marvel comics, and Jim Lee and other 90s artists, then it's definitely a no-brainer for me. As an overall package, I would give it an 8 out of 10. So thank you once again for joining me to have a look through this omnibus. Please like and subscribe if you like my content. There'll be more omnibus overviews eventually in the next few days or so. And I'm also looking at pumping out some different kind of content as well that we haven't yet got on the channel. So thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.